I'm Esther Kempen, and I'm a chemistry instructor at Alvin Community College. Alvin is a small community college of about maybe 3,500 students that's just south of Houston, Texas. And it's completely open enrollment, and I teach pretty much all of the majors chemistry classes. So General Chemistry 1, General Chemistry 2, OChem 1, OChem 2. And in my flipped classroom, so I've made all of my own videos. This is one where we're discussing shapes of molecules that I just took a screenshot of. But I use Sapnap Learning in my classroom, both as almost polling software and as online homework. And the reason is I've got a whole lot of videos that they have to do, lab and lecture together. So they have lab pre-labs that are due every day. They have lab write-ups that are due every day. They have videos that are due every day, and they have sapling problem sets that are due once a week. And the calendar of all the different assignments that are due on a regular basis is cumbersome. So I'm trying to reduce their perception of extra assignments. So rather than using polling software in class, which I do still do occasionally, although I use a free software that doesn't have nearly as many bells and whistles as iClicker, but has no cost to the student. And but I've eventually gone to more using Sapling as a polling software. And so we work the problems in class, they watch videos at home, and then whatever problems we don't finish in class, they finish for homework. And for every day of video lectures, there is a day of Sapling problem set. I flipped mostly because this is the feedback that I was getting from my students, that when I did a problem up on the board, it was really easy because I know all the decisions to make. But when they would do the homework by themselves, they didn't even know where to start. And so not even being able to determine what the question's asking sometimes is a real roadblock to the students when they're trying to go through what to do. But I've also gotten a lot of feedback doing the flipped classroom that they have too many assignments and are doing more work at home than in a regular lecture class, which isn't necessarily true, but it's a perception that I'm trying to move away from, because it is important what they think of the class, and buy-in is important, because an unhappy student is spending more time thinking about how unhappy they are than they are learning the material. So how does Sapnap Learning help? So I usually have about 20 problems per class period. Now, if they're really small problems, there'll be significantly more. I try to make it not an unreasonable overkill load of questions. And Sapling has this really awesome heat map where you can go into a class and click, and you can see who's tried the problem, how many times they've tried the problem, whether or not they've put an answer in. And since we're doing these questions live and in class together, I can, with just hitting the refresh button, really see who's where, but on the whole problem set. I can see that this student has gone ahead and is working 5 problems ahead of where I am with the rest of the class, which is great, because when they come into a problem, they'll raise their hand and go, Dr. K, can I go to, can we talk about this? And they'll oftentimes bring up questions that the whole class wants to hear that I don't always predict that someone's going to ask. And so it kind of differentiates the instruction for the student if they want to go ahead but still have access to answer instructor questions. And sometimes they'll answer 5 questions ahead, and I'm walking through the class with my tablet, and I'll stop and ask them or talk to them about what their answer is, because the other thing about the heat map is you can look at their answer to their question. And through the algorithmic process, although I wish sometimes you could choose whether or not it was an algorithmic question or not, especially on really introductory topics, they all have different numbers. So they're not all doing exactly the same problem, which means that they're all doing their own work instead of copying off their neighbor and typing in that question. Sometimes it's good to be able to discuss it, but they can look at their math and compare and say, okay, we did this at this time. Usually the numbers are close enough that they can figure out what's going on. And if the class is taking a really long time with a question, I might do part of it for them. I'm always doing the question when they're doing the question so that it took me this long, so it'll probably take them twice as long, kind of thing, other kinds of things. So this is an example of the heat map, and of course, because of FERPA, and I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I changed all the names of the students into Star Trek characters. And the red shirts are because this was the very last quiz that I gave. It's the only one that I did using I've been using Sapling for 5 years, so way before it was a Macmillan product, I started using Sapling. And so I'm still using the old version with Flash, and this is the only quiz or the only assignment that I had for the semester that was using the new Sapling system without Flash. So a lot of students had dropped by this point in the semester, and they're all red shirts because the red shirts always die. And it's not necessarily the complete class, but you can see, okay, so Spock over here got some of the darker green ones answered the first try. Second try maybe was the other ones, and the yellowish one, they tried multiple times. The Tribble just didn't even try that question. This one got completely wrong. Now, in general, this was a quiz. Even on quizzes, they can answer the question as many times as they want, but they don't get feedback on a quiz right away. Usually when I'm doing a homework or a regular problem set, they can do every question as many times as they want. As long as it's before the due date, they get whatever the highest point distribution is. So I don't take anything off for them getting it wrong until the due date has passed. So if they figure out how to do the problem later on, and they can go back and fix it, they'll get 100% points. But I really love this heat map because it tells you, is the student keeping up with class? How many times they've tried the problems? Who's gone ahead? Who's completed the assignment? And you can refresh it real time. So even when I'm giving a quiz, I have a class set of computers that I wheel into class every day. They're for the lab, but I can get away with using them in lecture too. Why waste a resource? They were expensive. So they will take quizzes also in Sapling, and I use this heat map to see when everybody's done. So I'll cut off the quiz when the heat maps says that almost everybody's done or everybody that showed up on time is done. And if you click on the student name, now when I changed the names to protect the innocent, I didn't make them blue, but they are clickable links. You can go into that student's assignment. You can see their answer, which in some cases will give you a clue as to what they're doing wrong. You can click to see every single attempt, and you can also click on what the correct answer to their version of the problem is, which is really useful to see if they got it wrong just due to rounding differences, or if they actually don't know what they're doing. Or did they mess it up because of a sign, which is in Chem 2 often a lot of problems, because if energy is going in, it's a positive, and if energy is going out, it's a negative, and they may have done all of the math correctly, but just missed which direction the energy is flowing. And all of those things you can then, I usually have a tablet in class, and I'll walk around the class and actually find the student, because my classes are small, they're only about 24, and I can say, hey, you have your sign wrong, or, let me see your work, compare the work to this work, and I can see kind of where they went wrong, real time. So the way that I use Sapling Learning is every single assignment has the capability of being both homework and polling I could use it for polling. I can differentiate between different students. I can tell how long it's taking them. So sometimes I might say, hey, I noticed nobody's putting any answers. Do we know what this question is asking? And we can go look at that. Or I can do the first half of the question and then let them go on, or we can do it in different steps. So it's allowing me to reduce that perception of, well, there's a clicker problem set in class, and then we have even more homework. So we're watching the lectures at home, and then we're doing a clicker problem set in class, and then we have another set of homework outside, because then they get really bogged down with that. Whereas if I just have this one assignment, then it's, whatever you get done in class, you use that time as wisely as possible, you can get most of it done. If you don't, then you may need to work a little bit more at home, because you're not necessarily as strong a student as some of the other ones that can go a little bit faster. And so it helps me differentiate a little bit more. And I do this in all 4 of my classes. So even in OChem, I'm using Sapling Learning, and we'll do problems together. So that's pretty much it.